All right, so we are live, Matt. So what I'll do is in a few minutes we'll introduce ourselves. So let's give people a chance to join. See Naiden on there. Welcome, Naiden.
Crowd is lively already.
Yeah. Well, he's talking about hooking up his AC, so he's got his own personal ICS environment. Awesome. Yeah, we're going to give people about a minute to join, and then we'll start, Matt. So it's I assume we're supposed to be entertaining people, but let's go ahead and wait just a second and see where we go from there. There's all kinds of so I mean, this is my third time, so I'm still trying to figure out what's going on here. There's Michael. Michael's joining us. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and
sticking pens in toasters is generally not a good idea, Michael.
No, let's not do that. Well, I mean, pencils are okay because it's wood, right?
I don't know. This pencil's not.
Yeah, well,
I like metal things. They go very badly sometimes, though.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let me do my little intro. So, welcome everybody to the Cutaway Security ICS Friday Infosec chat. Once again, welcome back. And we just want to have a quick chat. I'm just having a quick chat with friends and see if anybody has any questions. So if you're joining us from LinkedIn or YouTube, please ask questions. It'll appear to us, and we'll try to get those answered. Other than that, we're just going to chat about our stuff, our week, our experiences. Today, I'm joined by my friend Matt Carpenter. So, Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter. I am a principal at Grim Cybersecurity, one of the people who founded the Cyber Physical Systems group at Grim. And we've played with everything from automotive to airplanes to medical devices to control systems, and we've got just a ton of cool things going on, all focused on breaking and then doing good with what we've broken. So
yeah. So how did you?
By the way, are we legally obligated to try to talk Michael out of trying to pen test a toaster?
I mean, Michael's an adult. He can make his adult decisions and stuff like that. So yeah. So actually, everybody, I am joining from an undisclosed location. So I'm trying to do this as much as I can. When I'm at home, it's certainly a little bit easier. I went out and bought a MiFi and expense that to Cutaway Security so that we can do this on site. But Matt, so how did you kind of get involved with this? I mean, have you been doing ICS security, information security since you were a little kid, or did you kind of migrate over into it?
I wish. When I was a little kid, no, information security wasn't a thing. Viruses consisted of things that ended up on a 3.5-inch floppy disk and carried between machines. I am saddened by how much I missed out on by not getting involved in college. Mm-hmm. But no, so I just had a computer when I was little. I started programming by the time I was 8, basic. Mm-hmm. And I loved this capability, and I loved the interest that people had in what it was I was doing. Ended up getting a computer science degree, and actually I started off my work as a trainer and a consultant. Became a network engineer for Novell and did some Microsoft networking stuff. I know, right?
I'm sorry.
Hey, it is an interesting career path. But I'd say about 6 years into my career, my supervisor told me, I was working in data telecom, and my supervisor told me to go to SANS training, and I'm like looking at the cool SANS things, and I was in charge of VPNs, remote access, dial-up, and the AAA authentication, authorization, mm-hmm. and accounting. at the time, and they had a class for that, and then they had this really cool looking class called Hacker Techniques, Exploits, and Incident Handling, made by Ed Scotus and taught by him at the time. I'm like, so there's this thing, or there's this thing, and he said, think outside the box. So, dude, Hacker Techniques.
You've been thinking outside the box ever since. I mean, you started reversing things. So you started getting into, I mean, just basically hacking and diving deep. And that's always one of the things that I've really appreciated that you've taught me, is to dive deep into something. It's just because it doesn't work, it just means that there's something either you don't understand or you're not doing correctly, and that goes back to your understanding. And so you need to, every time I talk to you, it's just like, well, did you read the documentation? So before I even call you, or before I even text you, it's just like, okay, do I know which page number in the documentation I should be referring to, because he's going to ask me, right? So it's so you've always had this deep dive into it, but you got into industrial controls when the smart energy working groups were going on there, and invited some companies. So that was your first start into it, right? So what was that experience with an industry kind of advancing into security? And if you can kind of, talk about what you're seeing today in some of the other industrial sectors that aren't doing, what the utilities did.
Yeah, interesting. So I developed a reputation for software reverse engineering, and it was in the heat of the ARA grants, and oh my gosh, I almost said President Biden. Obama was pushing renewing our restructuring and renewing our energy grid, and we had a power company reach out and tap my company at the time, saying, hey, we know you've got some hacking capability, can you help us out? And they were looking at rolling out smart meters, and that was Consumers Energy from Michigan. Great company. But they saw this huge risk. And hi, Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar, go video, Oscar. When you get a chance, go video.
So they basically, they hired me to come in and apply all the hacking and reverse engineering and thinking outside the box, and generically just being annoying that I can do, to apply it to smart meters and embedded systems, and then into industrial control systems, which is a whole nother ball of wax, because there was a ton of money behind pushing smart meters forward and what benefits they could bring, but there wasn't a lot of money, and there wasn't a lot of ability to address some of the more ICS focused vulnerabilities in the grid. And I was introduced to this stark difference even in the energy industry. So in control systems, there's this huge long history. We've been doing industrialization for so long, and early on, nothing was going to be connected to the internet, right? But they started sticking IP addresses on control systems. And do you remember the SCOTUS principle, Don? The SCOTUS principle that says every IP network wants to and eventually will be connected to every other IP network. And of course, we've seen that. Maybe we've got a firewall, maybe there's a NAT involved, but we've seen the linkage where a concerted attacker, be it nation state or other well-funded or people who simply that is their life goal, that they're able to figure out a creative way to maybe bounce through into the corporate environment using a web exploit on a porn set. Wait, no, they don't watch porn at work.
Hey now. No, and I actually talk about that whenever I'm in there when I'm teaching my ICS 410 class, and we start talking about Ethernet, and the reason why we do information security in these control environments is because they are connected to the network. And I always follow it up with Mike Poor's axiom, which is once you are connected to the internet, you're 30 milliseconds away from every creep on the planet. So I often combine those two when I'm talking about it. So.
Or just your email that freaks you out and makes you click. It doesn't matter what your actual intentions are. There are ways to exploit systems that are connected to the internet. And we keep coming up with more. So pivoting through and trying to find a way into the control systems network. The biggest problems that we've seen, from my perspective, is it's not sexy, so there's no money, and the you touched it last mentality of you don't touch it, because if it breaks, it's on your watch. This is supposed to be working for another 20 years. Coupled with the easy way out of thinking, where you don't know what you don't know, and you really aren't being diligent enough to learn what you don't know so that you can maybe clear that up. And so and this permeates all of cybersecurity, where your C developer doesn't it's too complex to really think about everything that's going on. So you trust that memcopy is going to be done securely, or these things that are part of the common libraries, they do their thing. It's their responsibility. Here's my responsibility, I'm going to just use it. We see that everywhere, and unfortunately that pervades every vertical that I've ever been in, every vertical market.
You kind of, I mean, I don't want to say you individually did it, but you kind of forced some of the research and really pushed it forward within the vehicle industry by going out and just going to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure you went out to like the pick and pulls and just started pick and pulling like a Ford Escort or something like that together, and then started piecing it together so that you could understand the communications. And I mean, that's what I've always loved about you, Matt, is that you are not tied to convention. You don't want to break your own stuff, but you're more than willing to piece together a bunch of other things. And I do know that you break your own stuff too.
So, I was going to say, not
so
that's
kind
never happened.
So kind of describe your vehicle stuff, C3P, the kind of the origins of C3PO and where you went with that.
So 3PO, wow. Yeah, 3PO, for those of you who don't know, that's our car hacking lab. 3PO has served many roles, but it got its origin from a couple different things. The TLDR is, I was asked to give a presentation in some demonstration of car hacking at an early on conference back in 2014, 15. And I asked what kind of car they were going to have so that I could prepare and set up a demonstration that was interesting. And they're like, wait, we can't have a car. This is inside of a building. And I'm like, okay. And I've been already talking to my boss about the founder of Grim at the time, about having a car hacking lab, something that we can use to demonstrate, something we can use to learn, something that we can use to just break and develop tools against. And so I gave him a call. I said, so that conference that I'm going to give a talk at, and we talked about this car hacking lab. Yeah, they kind of have to coincide. And he's like, do it. Here's a budget number. Let me know if you need to go over. And I had 3 weeks. So we started off the phone call, and I'm an old car guy. I've been wrenching on cars since I was able to drive them. And so junkyards and me are no strangers, but I called around to junkyards, and the most common answer I got when I asked to purchase an entire vehicle's ECU set was, huh? You want the car pewter? Okay, for what car? And I went through about 4 different handoffs of people who didn't know what I really wanted, but hey, a recommendation: you should call these guys. You should call these guys. And I ended up finally with another guy on the end of the line at this particular junkyard saying, so what you're telling me is you really want this, 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 and this, and you want to piece them together. You're gonna have to do that yourself. But and like he was intelligent. He understood. Like he and I made a connect. I'm like,
Yeah,
yes.
sometimes it's just finding the right person. It's not everybody is going to get what we're doing or understand why or reasoning why, and that's okay, because that's they're in their own world, they have their own understandings. But finding those people that are operating at the with the same understanding as we are, those people are golden. Making those networking and those networking connections, maintaining contact with those people, and just communicating, treating them like the subject matter experts that they are, and letting them know what you want to do goes a long way.
But so much of it is an overly complex world, and the things that we do to stay sane in an overly complex world, the answer at some layer, and there's multiple layers to the problems, the answer at the lower levels is curiosity. And Don, this is one thing that I think just bonded us from the first time we ever worked together, or the first time we ever met. Wow, sorry, I got that flipped. But I remember the how we got to work together. But it's about curiosity. It's about wanting to know, wanting to discover, and then being willing to see the things that I don't understand and coming up with a plan for how to fill in those gaps. The fog of war is this big, and I need to know how to fill in the gaps that I need to get to where I'm going, and then going about it and doing it. And so there's a certain foundational technology knowledge that you kind of got to develop in yourself. You got to know what, how a computer works basically, but then you've got to be able to project out, here's a thing that I don't know. How do I learn about it? How do I go about it? And then have the intentionality and recognition and motivation to go do it.
Right. And I think so. You have definitely that that research mentality. You, Travis Goodspeed, Josh Wright, have that. I want to know all about this stuff. My approach is, I want to do this thing, right? And I get frustrated really easy, and you've seen it. I've thrown things at you.
Because so glad the solder was dry at that point and cold.
I know what I want to do, and I just don't know how to do it. And I drive and drive and drive until I get to do it. What you taught me is that understanding, if I want to achieve my goals, I need to understand why things are, why I'm not achieving it. And a tool that's out there that's already written by somebody else might benefit me, but really writing my own tools, being able to control it all myself, so that it just goes further. It'll take me further, because as soon as I learn how to do something, I'm going to have new other ideas. I'm going to have other directions, which I wouldn't have had if I just relied on a specific tool. So it all depends on goals. It all depends on what your direction is. But certainly, if you want to go do things that you didn't expect to do, or other people didn't understand, you need to dive deep. So that's what I enjoyed learning and working with you, and both Travis and Josh and a bunch of other people that we worked with. So,
well, I mean, Don, you definitely don't want to downplay the want to. I remember one of the most exciting conversations I've had was with you, where you had said, hey, I'm willing. Tell me what to do. How can I help you? How do I plug in? I know that I'll learn a lot. And I chewed on that, and I took that for the goodwill that it was worth at first. And then I remember I'm rototilling my garden, which is one of my biggest thinking times of the year. And I remember that request from you and going, okay, so I got a smart guy who's willing, and I got this technical need. that I think would be a really cool match for him. He'd be able to do and push him and stretch him and piss him off, and then it would make him a better person and researcher hacker. And so we had the conversation, and you're like, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you remember, but I said, you're going to write this twice, but don't be offended and don't be discouraged, because the first time it'll suck and it's okay. I want to, it's nothing to do with you. It's just like every time that we've gone through this, that's how the growth period goes. See, you grow and then you rewrite it with the things that you learned, and you did. And it was awesome. And that was like I've actually modeled a lot of things after that experience with you, with other people.
Right, and what he's talking about is he gave me I was reaching out to him about a project of Python. I wanted to learn Python, but I didn't want to. I mean, Googling was a thing, so open file, close file, serial comport. Okay, that's great, but how do I find something that's applicable? Well, I talked to somebody that's actually doing something and has a need. And so he gave me a project, and it was an MSP 430 emulator. And I think I often, when I think back at that, I was just like, all right, he's giving me this project just to get me to shut up and go away. Right? It's like, okay, this is going to be hard. All right, he's either gonna step up and do it, or he's gonna shut up and go away. And I did it, and he's right. You told me that I was gonna write it twice. What you didn't tell me is that you're gonna rewrite the whole thing so that you can implement it in your own tool, which is just what you ended up doing anyways later. So, but that was okay. By that time I understood it, and it driven me in the right direction for doing things. So, you have so you took the 3PO and you created the that quick presentation, but certainly then you started mounting it, mounting the different components on plywood and porting that around. But what I was really impressed is that you actually that went from something that you could show off at different conferences, and now you guys have an actual lab there that you can drive up to, garage you can pull vehicles into, and so forth. So talk about that transition and those capabilities.
Oh my! I first got to give a shout out to my guy Tim Brom. He's managing director here at Grimm of the Sci-Fi Group now. He took what I did with 3PO and fixed a couple things, because turns out all the ground wires need to be connected, and then turned it into something that took less than 4 hours to tear down and set up. Like it's his and his wife's brilliance that turned it into something that we could tote around to conferences. Because I'll tell you, the first couple conferences, one, I just had it made and shoved it in the back of a truck, and I drove it down and back. But the second time I had to fly out to RSA, and I chopped it into 4 parts, and I marked out where everything was, and I put little, I thought I was getting all creative and cool, and I put dowel things in between the different wood things so they went back together, and it ended up looking the same, but it took like 4 hours to set up, and it was horrible. And so Tim made it better, made it work, and then later on, he came up with the idea of slicks and instruction sheets that we could set people down at any conference. And if you're a manager or you write code 24/7, you could sit down and you could walk through working with our car hacking tool and 3PO, the lab, and do a couple things. In particular, the things that it walked you through were faking out a sensor, and more excitingly, how to capture and replay the unlock doors message. And so we got, in the car, we've got the actual locking mechanism. So when you unlock the car, it works. And so there's just so much fun stuff there that can be done. But we've used that for so many different things. We've done work on, it's a Ford, I'm drawing a blank. It's a Ford.
Escort.
Well,
Well, Yeah.
Ford
So
Focus.
I mean, oh,
But
Ford Focus. That's right.
but
I'm
we
sorry.
were able to
So I mean,
capture messages off of the Ford
mhm,
Focus, off of it. And we've done work on other Ford products for infotainment systems. A lot of times you have to have CAN messages that tell it that it's time to turn on. It's not just a power
right.
on off anymore. And so for some of the work that we've done on that, we've captured messages off of 3PO and then just replayed them on the bus so that we had this standalone infotainment system and it'd power up for us. So
Right. And
fun
that
stuff like
that
that.
that was the start of CanCat, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You're right. And then you guys just had a recent. I saw you tweet out that there was an update, a new version that was pushed. So how have you updated it? You know, why did you push out a new version?
Oh, so CanCat's undergone a lot of work over the years, and we maintain an internal development or accompaniment thing for things that we can't publish, but we try to push as much out to the public as reasonable and responsible. Um, but we've over the years we've taken it from like an Arduino Uno with a shield shoved on top that couldn't keep up with a modern vehicle to an Arduino Due based system. Actually, we focus more on uh, a tool that just kind of made that into one tool called Machina M2.
Hmm.
And it's a company, they make them. It's actually cheaper to buy their stuff than it is to do the Arduino combination thing. But the new release is fixing a few bugs because it used to be Python 2 and Python 3 became a thing. Um, but we wrapped in CanMap, which is a tool that will basically it's Nmap for cars. So it'll go through an address set and do the normal things to identify existing ECUs or electronic control units on the bus, and then display that to you like an Nmap. Or you can focus in on one and it'll go through all the diagnostics. It'll pretty exhaustively identify different diagnostics messages that it'll take. So really cool stuff. That was one of the big things that we pushed for version 2. The other one, this is really big for me, we pushed out J1939 support, which is
Hmm.
CAN for heavy trucking or other industrial systems like um, CAN's everywhere, just in case you don't
Hmm.
know. It doesn't stand for car anything. It stands for controller area network. And it started off in building automation. But because the twisted pair differential signaling, there's a ton of flexibility and ability to withstand a lot of electromagnetic interference, like in cars. You'll find them in airplanes. You'll find it
Robotics,
everywhere.
right?
And
Robotics. And
robotics. Yep.
have you
So
used it outside of vehicles? I mean, I know you can, but is your experience mostly in vehicles, or have you used it in some of the other industries?
I think all the stuff that my team's done has been focused on transportation sectors things. So cars, trucks, airplanes are the focus. Haven't run into it in space yet, but I know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but it's just a ton of fun. So we created a J1939 support tool. So actually, there's now CanCat, which is the command line tool, and J1939 Cat, which connects you in with. I mean, all the CAN stuff is the same for J1939. It just there's a lot more layered on top of it. So that's really exciting. Allows us to actually talk to trucks and do diagnostics with trucks and track what's going on if you have any interesting things there.
Yeah, and that's pretty awesome. So, what are you doing next? What's your next big thing?
Wow. So we're in the middle of a big DARPA project where we've been writing an emulator, a PowerPC based emulator of a full ECU from Cummins. So if you're
Okay.
familiar, Cummins is they're the heavy truck name that just they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You and one of the big differences between the automotive industry, the light duty automotive industry, and the heavy trucking, the heavy vehicle is that light duty automotive, you can't pull out a Ford component and shove it in a Chevy and expect it to work. They create an experience for you. In heavy duty vehicles, you end up with a whole lot more plug and play, mix and match. So you may have a Volvo truck that's running a Cummins engine and a Bendix brake controller, and in fact, fleets are known to design their own trucks based on just using the parts that are available, and that's made possible because J 1939 is primarily a well-defined protocol where the messages themselves, to do the majority of what you're going to do, they're defined in an SAE standard, the J 1939 standards.
So it's providing that interoperability so that you can build things and mix and match things. So
yeah,
that's interesting. Well, Matt, we're coming up on the end. We only have a half an hour to talk. I know you and I could. I'm just appreciative that I could spend a half an hour with you. It's so few and far between. I can't wait till we're hanging out together, and I can, or maybe I can come up to the Carpenter Ranch and hang out there. So we'll figure out something like that.
Well, but let's make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Why don't you, is there any way people, if they wanted to reach out, if they're interested in vehicles, if they're interested in reversing, where should they be reaching out to talk to you?
So you can reach me. My Twitter handle is MA77Carpenter. My email address is Matt, MATT, at grim-co.com, grim-co.com. Reach out. I mean, I can make available anybody else at the company if you want. I mean, I'm not the best person to talk to necessarily, but
you can point people in the right direction. That's
absolutely.
It's all about networking and reaching out to people that have common interests. So, well, Matt,
I did want to say one last thing before you close it up. I did want to say one last thing. So much of what we've been talking about is about things that you want to do to prepare for the main event, and I like to consider it like making a 6-course meal. You don't make a 6-course meal by turning on the stove and then running to the store and getting an ingredient, coming back, throwing it on and saying, oh, I need this other thing, and driving back to the store. You go to the store, you stock up, you get the ingredients you need. You maybe have a job so you can pay for it and not just steal, because that really puts a crimp in your 6-course meal. So much of what we do is that. We got to go to the store and buy the things that we need. And that means getting familiar with Ghidra, IDA, Binary Ninja, Vivisect, having experience so that when you show up, you have to learn. Every job, correct me if I'm wrong, Don, every job you go to, you got to learn. You come away knowing more and learning stuff and struggling in that job. And it wouldn't be fun if it weren't. But showing up with so many of the ingredients that you already need, because you've done the work, you've invested, you've been curious, you've identified your weak spots, and you've filled them in. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry.
No, it's great. And I really appreciate you and putting that out there. It definitely is a learning point. You have to have people can show you and point you in the right direction, but you have to do it. You have to do it. You have to learn it with your experiences, your successes, and your failures. And we learn more from our failures. And you helped me understand that, and I really appreciate it. Well, everybody, thank you very much for joining us for another Cutaway Security ICS Friday Infosec chat. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Don't know who we're bringing on, so we'll figure it out. And if you want to join, reach out to me. But other than that, everybody go forth, do good things, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Matt. Take care.
Thank you.